Hello folks, Broadway.com here, continuing the crash test for the blue-red Curio combo deck. This time around it's against another Grixis variant, not a Delver control version. I really wanted to play tests against all sorts of Grixis decks with this deck simply because it's supposed to be the worst matchup for the deck on paper, in theory. So if there is a way for me to somehow in certain situation win the game against theoretically worst ever matchup for this modern deck, then I should be okay with it for at least some FNMs maybe. So he just laid down a fetch land, and I laid down an island. No faceless looting or anything. I think I just had a bunch of counter spells, and I didn't even have a bolt or anything like that. And plus he's on the control version, so that means that no Delver is to kill on turn 1. He just passed the turn after a second land drop, as did I. Did exactly the same, although had some action to do at the end of my turn. Cast a Thought Scholar, milling himself for 2, drawn another card. Not sure he drew for the turn. I suppose he did. I really hope so. It was kinda too quick here. My hand was containing like a Spell Pierce and a Mana Leak, so I was hoping for him to actually do something on the early turns, but unlike Delver variant, the control version is like the control deck. That's what it does, so it actually reacts to the opponent instead of doing some proactive stuff, which is kinda bad for me, because I would rather just counter something he does and then untap and have mana up. We did have something like one game against Delver, and I'm not sure if I'm gonna go back to that kind of matchup. I think I'll post it here at the end of this tape rather than recording more games of that matchup. So previously, before this, I mainly just playtested this build of blue-red Curio against Affinity deck, and I did like the matchup quite a bit. I lost few games simply because of wrong card choices in the deck. So he casted not so early Angler. I tapped for a Clown's Curio with a blue mana up for Spell Pierce or something. But he could always just cast a Quilligan's Command, destroy an artifact, or kill my guy, or do both, or destroy the Curio and make me discard the card. I could sometimes counter that, but most of the time I wouldn't be able to. And it's pretty sick. He runs so much removal, so much counter spells, even ways to destroy my artifacts. So it is almost like playing Affinity, really, against this deck. But Affinity at least can maybe like sneak in some damage in the early turns and then maybe try to grind it out with some Naxai and some plating somehow, but still probably lose if there isn't a fast draw. So while I really can't do much against his hand full of answers, with like just 2 bolts and 3 burning emissaries in my hand, he just cast another Call Against Command. I can't do nothing about it. I'll probably be just discarding one of the burning 3 emissaries here in response to it, so that's he cannot do much. I just decide to double bolt Angler so that I can actually not die in this game so quickly because I'm already down at 10 after a couple of his attacks with the mighty 5-5 beast. So he has a lot of stuff, and you definitely see him having a Snapcaster in hand. And I'm just casting random second Clownstone Curio just into his stuff. And you see he's actually like throwing his hands in the air a little bit, realizing that he tapped to only red source to cast the Snapcaster, and he decides to take it as a principle and not take it back. Even though those are test games, maybe just to mentally train himself to not do stuff like that. I was already in a very bad shape here, so it was just about prolonging my death. I don't have stuff like Terminate for things like Angler on his side. My top deck was just a Bolt. I could just maybe Bolt an Angler, Bolt Snapcaster, and maybe, I don't know, do something. I had 2 emissaries in my hand, but that's still terrible. Even if I draw like an Altar of Brood, which replaced Dragon's Claw from the earlier video, he would still have a lot of like removal for it. He would have like a Snare, Remand. Well, Remand wouldn't matter that much, but Terminate definitely will. And then he could counter back my protective is a Charm or Mana Lake. So yeah, not that great. 2 Colgan's commands in a row, that was rather tough. On the other hand, I asked for it. Alrighty then, on to the next game. So there are some situations where I could potentially sneak in. And he kind of went aggressive on the Colgan's command. Basically, he more or less knew that it's a combo deck and it's based around Curio, but he didn't know yet exact way how do I actually win the games. So my actual sequencing for the win was still basically a mystery to him, but it would soon be quite clear for him in this matchup. Anyways, before he sideboarding at least, he is pinpointing to the fact that he needs to put Anger of the Gods over Pyroclasms. Angers were stopped in his Jeskai Temple deck from standard. Mounting into Altar of the Brood, that's one of the win conditions, together with Grape Shots. So Altar of the Brood, that's the 1-mana enchantment, that's and what it does is when a non-artifact permanent on my side enters play, I can bounce another permanent of the same type back to my hand. So that's how combo works. I get Clownstone Curio in play, then I play a couple of 3 guys like Priest of Verbracer or Burning Tree Emissary, and just keep on casting them. They keep jumping up. So this like proxies the Scalding Tarns, the red-blue fetchlands, which are with my teammates in his Grixis deck. I do have the Stingmans here as well, at least, which is good stuff for me. Yeah, it's a bit annoying when, even if you share a card pool with a teammate, you cannot have all copies of cards like for everybody. Unfortunately, Boat Brew is not a card store yet. Maybe at some point in the future, but not right now. So we don't have a huge stock of Magic singles to operate with in the playtesting. And we do play a lot, and basically all formats. So nothing much happening here. He's just drawing more and more counter spells in his hand. He doesn't have to do much. He can just at some points end of turn like Snapcaster for value and just attack with it forever and basically safely sit on counter spells, and that's it. He doesn't really have to do much here. While I do have to kind of pull the trigger at some point, because I cannot sit forever and I don't have really great answers to whatever he's doing. So it is a very negative matchup, but the reason why I'm half blue in the first place is just for this matchup, so that I have my own dispels and stuff like to counter his Kolgan's commands, and maybe sometimes even anglers if I get lucky. And as it charms just doubles up as a cheap removal plus counter spell plus cantrip. So I'm trying to actually establish here the win plan with the Runechanter Spike. Not many spells in my graveyard yet. It's just 3 lands and a Faceless Looting, which I can flash back and put more stuff, or I can just mill myself a little bit with the pike to get value out of it. But my creatures would be quite small, and he has Terminates in the deck and counter spells and stuff like that. So even if I get my Giant Axe to first strike creature, he has so many ways to get rid of it. So it's a big struggle. But I kind of think against his deck is sometimes a better plan than the plan A with the combo. 5th lands and just passing, so I need to dig through the deck for to get my one of my 8 creatures in the deck. There's only 1 pike in the deck, and it's still kind of sweet. I like it. Not only against this deck, but against some others, the combo deck, which requires actually a lot of pieces to work. It's not gonna work, so you will have to just try to win with the pike and just one of your 8 creatures, which is ambitious, but could work with 8 dig spells. Snapcaster end of turn. No, not end of turn, just trying to cast Spell Snare to counter my emissary. I counter back with the Mana Leak, to which he responds by cracking a fetch land. The Polluted Delta gets an island, tries to dispel it, I dispel back. Trying to do something, I get Emissary into play, I get 2 mana out of it back. I guess to mill him for a bunch, but that's not a huge deal. I do mill him because that actually might work as a win condition, and I could just start milling myself with the land drops to make a bigger creature later on. But because he does mill himself, plus he draws a bunch of cards and stuff like that, just a mill plan could work, especially because altars, multiple altars do work. So end of turn he just bolted my creature, which was a complete bummer. But I was giving him so many turns, and his deck is simply like removal and counter spells for the most time, so not too surprised there. but yet a dagger. With some counter spells, protection, and so on. Like my creature with a pike could actually go all the distance. It's possible just to kill with it in 2 attacks, because I do run a lot of spells, and I do run some discard spells, and I can heal myself, etc. So I'm attempting an easy charm to loot at the end of turn, because I don't really need to kill the Snapcaster, and my plan is to loot to dig for another creature for the pike, because for Cryptic, counters draws, I untap. His hand is stocked with a lot of things. He can dispel, he can cast a command, anything whatsoever. Don't really even know how to fight this matchup, and I do need to maybe find a solution for it, or just accept the fact that this deck is just a FNM level deck. I do want it to get some confidence that it might be in some occasion competitive enough, but yeah, apparently a GP trial level deck at the maximum. Though it's still fun, and it's budget, and it's highly accessible. So attempting a Mamalik on his Kolgan's command, for which he would probably pay, but might as well. For some reason he decides not to just pay for the lick, but decides to mana lick back, which is kinda weird. And I pay free for the mana lick. So he could have just said that, like, okay, I pay free for your mana lick. So now he's forced to dispel, which is weird. He's spending 2 cards for nothing, which is really crazy. But in the end, I'm still like in a bad shape. The pike shouldn't be here. I'm actually surprised like how it turned out, because he did end up dispelling my mana leak. So the pike should not be there, because as far as I remember, he chose to break it down and break down the pike and make me discard the card, maybe. So that's kind of weird. He's delving a bunch of cards, probably just to cast another Angler, just to close out this game faster. And since he has a bunch of cards in hand, so more action and stuff, and a lot of mana in play, now he for some reason pays free for the Angler. He's really like anxious in these games and misplaying a bunch, and it still didn't bite him or cost him anything, because my deck is so weird and clunky. It's just too much. It might get like a little bit better after sideboard, well, you will see. It quickly finishes me up like with some attacks and the ball to face. Nothing special here. So yeah, moving on. Yeah, I think we decided here to have one more pre-board game. because I more or less knew how to sideboard in this matchup, but just wanted to have a better feel and see that, like, is there any hope whatsoever. So there is some chance that I could completely catch off guard somebody who just doesn't understand quickly what's going on and what could happen, and somebody might just tap out, but Grixis control doesn't really have to tap out, like outside of turn 1, maybe for Serum Visions, or maybe just cast like Visions in the dark, not understanding what I play. Maybe let's say consider that I'm twin or something, like sees a Curio, okay, let it resolve, then next turn understand this, like probably he's okay, and then keep like maybe Dispel mana up and have like just some like creeping Heartbeat or something, and then I just go for the win. Had to discard a couple of counter spells with the looting because I didn't have a blue mana there yet. So, and I wanted just to go for it. Apparently the waiting in the tank plan doesn't quite work in game 1. I just have to try to go for it and get over it if it doesn't work, and try again and try again. Dig in for pieces and just go all in. Because even if I have protection spell and wait for an extra turn to have mana up for counter backup, he's probably gonna have 1 or 2 counters as well. Proxy fetch, proxy tarn. We do have tarns, but it's like for a very small team it's really hard to have more than the playset of tarns, especially since we don't play modern like as much as we do play standards. And because it's fresh off the Pro Tour, and we needed to build a bunch of decks and so on, so the WMCQ season coming up very soon. So yeah, just slamming out turn 2 Classic Curio, which gets obviously mana leaked. Third land, just passing the turn. He doesn't really have to do anything. Control doing its thing here, clearly. Just random Priest of Urbrask. He's like, oh, yeah, probably, yeah, whatever. Get mana out of it. So, get free mana back. Temp, Burning Emissary. It's probably also okay. He has a command up in his hand, so he can 2 for 1 me at any point. Decides to go for a Spell Snare just to use up the conditional spells. I'm like, yeah, okay, I think I had a Bolt and a Grape Shot, and my plan was just like, yeah, he countered my Curio, now I just have to maybe try to raise at some point, somehow. With something. But the matchup is just horrid. It's too much card advantage and it's too many answers. So he goes for the command, just shoots the guy and makes me discard the card. I think I discarded the Bolt, which is quite terrible game 1 in this matchup. It's quite decent against Delver, but very awkward against the control variant. So I'm just seeing what I would have drawn, and yeah, nothing helps. Active Tasigur, I cannot quite kill it, and so on. I could run roasts in addition to combust in the sideboard, but that just doesn't seem like it's worth it. The matchup is just that bad. So we move on to the sideboard in here. So let's move on to sideboarding. So I'm thinking to actually take out some copies of Faceless Looting because it doesn't do enough. Probably don't have to take it out, but I need some spare slots for a bunch of things. I definitely take out the lightning bolts because they don't do anything, and like against Grixis Delver, the control version doesn't really run any small creatures, so it's worthless. He definitely brings in a couple of flash freezes, an extra dispel for my own counter spells in my vapor snags and such. He's thinking about bringing in Keranos, but I don't think he really needs it. So what I bring in is a couple of Acontrives to bounce his Tassigurs and Anglers to buy myself some time, or save my own guy, or save Curio. I boarded in Negates and Vapor Snacks for his fatties as well. So he is definitely bringing in Spellskite though. I don't know, I don't think he actually needs it. So he thinks like it's okay, but on the other hand, he much rather have like just more counter spells and more removal. He doesn't really need to protect his stuff. He can just win on the back of one Snapcaster and a bunch of other things. He was thinking seriously to take out Terminates, which is actually one of the best cards in this matchup. All he needs is just removal and counter spells and call against commands, that's it. So he doesn't really need a lot. So yeah, I explained to him that he doesn't really need Spellskite, he doesn't really need Keranos, because that's a win more card. As long as he has few answers to my stuff and some counter spells, he doesn't really need an extra win condition. He's thinking to maybe take out a couple of Terminates, because he actually has between bolts and command and Terminates and stuff like that and a bunch of counters, really huge amount of things to interact with me. Maybe it was okay to actually take out 2 Forge Cowers instead of just one, because he doesn't really need that extra speed the Forge Cower gives him for his Snapcasters and his Delve creatures. So it's actually okay if he just goes for the long game, because he has the sort of the inevitability, and in my case I do really need to start making action early instead of just waiting to sculpt the perfect 7, because his 7 most likely is going to be much better than mine. He's supposed to have Anger of the Gods in the sideboard, though that's not really needed in this matchup. Yes, it kills my creatures, but I am gonna play them the turn I'm thinking of trying to combo off. So he really doesn't need those Angers. On the other hand, if I do try to build transformational sideboards with Delvers, the Secrets, and Young Pyromancers, then perhaps Angers could be good, but he has no way of knowing that that's my plan after the sideboard. Only if he would see it like in the game 2, and I would actually manage to win that game, because game 1 I'm a huge underdog in this matchup. My hand is not spectacular, and he can keep any generic hand with some amount of interaction and at least a couple of lands. So here's my proxy Evolving Walls, proxying the Scalding Torrent. Having multiple sets of Scalding Tarns is kind of a burden. And I live kind of far away from my teammates, so basically grabbing cards from him sometimes is a liability in terms of distance and stuff, so we're playing just a bunch of Drogo style turns here. I don't feel like I'm ready to go in, even if my combo needs kind of like 2 turns to set up with some backup counter spells. So I do need at some point to play Constant Curio with some mana up for counter spells. And the turn I decide to try to dig deeper for more protection. I think at this point I almost had the combo up. At least I think I had the Curio in my hand. But I wanted, I think, to dig for a 5th land. I did get it, as you see, but I played it tapped. So maybe I just didn't have a 2 mana like protection spell yet, or I just had just a combo and nothing else. I don't know. No, I had 2 free guys, as I see. I had a negate, I had a grape shot. Yeah, the missing part is the Curio. So he casts Serum Visions, I think, there. The turn before this, passes me the turn. He doesn't really need to do anything. He just needs to exhaust my resources, and then he just, as I said, win with a 1 Snapcaster Mage or something like that. I'm still missing Curio. Even if I wouldn't, you see him already having a Call Against Command in hand. The most annoying card in this matchup can kill a Curio and one of my combo-ish creatures at the same time, with just 1 card. I'm missing a Curio here still, I think, but I have kind of everything else. But he is bound to have more counter spells than I do. And there are like 2 or 3 cryptic commands in his deck and 3 call against commands. So the matchup is bizarrely terrible. But I did want to have a feeling for it, so to know that's like what cards could potentially fix it or make it somewhat winnable. Because in all other matchups, it's actually okay. Even against decks like Giant or Abzan, 1 counter spell backup could be enough, because their deck is, I think, still ultimately a bit less interactive than Grixis Control. And actually there are quite a few very non-interactive combo decks in the format, and with having some kind of combo plus some ways to interact with them in the form of counter spells and balls, we do have some pretty good matchups in fact. He just removes his bin. He has to pay a bit more mana. Yeah, there were just like 3 cards in the bin, yeah, so he had to actually cast a Gurmag, Angler, the Zombie Fish with 4 lands, with 4 mana. But he has 4 mana up, so he does have like Cryptic Commands mana up, or, and you see I'm having even the Monolith in hand. Well, Monolith actually is becoming kinda dead here. End of turn I cast a Vapor Snake, bounce it back to Angler, back to his hand, kind of bind myself a turn. Try to maybe bail out some counter spell, but it would be a very unsmart thing to do. He just balls me on the turn because we have, I believe, a full set of Snapcasters in that deck, and stuff like Crippin' Tarpid, which he just played there, the animated land, which becomes a free to unblockable creature, so he can actually raise me. Well, I mean, just try to burn me out and win with some small dorks. Cast is a charm at the end of his turn to loot and dig for something. The problem is that I feel like I really need something to get through all this counter magic. Maybe playing at least a couple of Covenant of Souls is okay, because I think all of the creatures that I actually play, all 8 of them, are humans. So that plan works. I don't feel like I should play Swan Songs or Pact of Negations. Well, the first one maybe is okay over things like Dispel, for example, but it could easily bite me off, and if I'm not playing against a hardcore blue control deck, then the backups I have should be okay. Perhaps I didn't need that much of bound spells, and maybe should have kept at least some of those faces looting, because it really was lacking some kind of cantripping. So I attempted a Curio, he cryptic commanded, I backed it up by negate. Which is actually in the sideboards for matchups like this. Because spell pierces and licks become, as you may see, quite often not good enough. He actually lets this whole thing settle down, I think, and just takes the turn, I believe, because he had a mana leak, but I could easily just pay for it. But he decides to go for so he let the Curio thing settle, but he went for a Snapcaster Flashback Bolt. End of turn, I'm down to 10, potentially down to 5 on his attacks. If he decides to animate Tar Pit, what are no, the Starkleak Shores tapped. In the real rounds, on the real tournament, we would probably be playing a bit faster than this, but here we just wanted to analyze the matchup thoroughly. So he's attempting to attack me down to just 5, basically having little next turn, and this whole thing means that he doesn't really have to do anything else, only just react to whatever I do. It's kinda weird that he went for the command here after the attacks on his turn. He could have waited to try to do that on my turn. I didn't have a counter spell. Maybe he just saw that I was kind of tapped up low with only 4 up, and if I would attempt to do something, he would have mana leak or something. So if I would counter it with a non-dispel card, he had a mana leak. Oh no, he had a dispel in hand, so yeah, maybe that was okay. To destroy the Curio, to try to push me away from a potential win. I was forced to actually discard the Grapeshot last turn, so I have the full combo. Now I'm forced to hope that he doesn't really have removal. So that is very unlikely, but still possible. But I'm going down to 2 if he just attacks with the Tar Pit. So I don't think he had to attack with Snapcaster, but because he had a terminate for the creature I equipped with the pike, I would have to trade here, and I would be left with empty hand, empty board, and I would, from 1 top deck, I don't really can do much. He's chaining a couple of Serum Visions here. My only hope is to actually draw Ether Charm, because I took out the bolts. I think him having Snapcasters in the deck doesn't really justify me keeping bolts in the deck. But here, of course, it would have given me more outs. I don't think he actually had to attack with a Snapcaster here. Even if I equip, I don't think it was lethal. I don't think I had that many spells in my graveyard for the pike. So there you have it. Like, that's the first post-cyber game. Not super exciting, but gives you a lot of things to think about. It's actually a good showing for other decks, like what would you be able to do with your own deck against such a draw like this from Grixis control, and how can you battle through that? Don't tell me like your Naya burn deck could easily slice through all of what you've seen here. I know that. I'm expecting that to happen. So Grixis control is going to have a tough time against burn deck. But what about like all the other decks? How you're gonna fight through that? Well, let's see, maybe I do have some hope in this matchup after all, but I highly doubt it out of all the previous games. Tap Steam Dance from my untapped water grave into Serum Visions, digging for more gas. I think it was top bottom, and he put to the bottom the Mana Lake and kept Snapcaster on top. Yes, that's exactly what he did. I just fetched on my second turn. So yeah, of course assuming that Evolving Wells is a Scalding Tarn in the deck. My main goal is not to showcase like the whole deck in terms of pimping or anything, but just see whether it works. So Class on Curio resolved because he was, I think, sort of tapped or something. I know he wasn't tapped, but he didn't have a counter spell, so there was Force Cower, and then on his turn Serum Visions, I think, again top bottom. Just to tap the Tar Pit. First card hit this spell, but he does have two more in the deck after sideboarding. But I suppose I just didn't have the combo right there, or I just didn't want to go for it. I think he had just no, he had like Blood Crypt untapped or something like that. I'm not sure. I'm not sure he had blue mana up there. Maybe I was just lacking one piece. My hand is not super clear here. So he's digging more with Serum Visions. He doesn't have to do much. I guess he just wanted to dig till he gets his boom booms. There you see he drew the Angler, Flooded Strand. Has his fetch number 9 in addition to Blasting Mars and Polluted Deltas. So, just to let you folks know, you don't have to even have Scalding Tarns in your Grixis control deck. 1 Delta and 4 Deltas, 1 Strand and 4 Blasting Mars is more than enough. So you would save yourself at least 100 or something in that difference, if not more, probably more. Not sure how much is it right now, but I know like quite a bit, way more than the Hansa Tarker fetchies. I just passed the turn, didn't really have anything good to continue with. Angler crushing in the red zone, putting me to 4th, so that happened. Moving on, so Colgan's command making me, I think, discard the card and destroying the Curio. Has a lot of mana up for potential counter spells if I try to defend it. I have 2 blue mana there. I'm trying to cast Acorn Truth to bounce back Curio back to my hand, but he has so much things going on. So cracks a bloated delta in response, grabs an island, he has enough black and red mana and whatever. He goes for Snapcaster Dispelling it, which is kinda weird because I could have as well had counter for that dispel, so he was rushing quite a bit. So end the turn Vapor Snag on the Angler while he step out, bind myself 1 return essentially, because with Snap and Angler it's a 2-turn clock while I was at 14. This way I get to have more time to draw more out. See him having a couple of bolts in hand, so yeah, too much going on for him. Too many things. I gave him all the time in the world at the start of the game. I had pretty much a window for the combo when I think he had only 1 mana up. It could have been a bolt or a dispel, but I don't think it was even a blue mana source. Now he's just going for bolt beatdown plan on me. Just cast a couple of lightning bolts at the ends, and now Snapcaster and Creeper Tarpint smashing into the red zone. And go down to 1. I need an out for the Tarpit ASAP, but the problem is that it's only easy charm because I took out the lightning bolts, which are pretty bad in this matchup, but accidentally would have been pretty good in this game, trying to kill the Tarpit and so on. So yeah, I'm just explaining, if like that Altar of the Bird would have been Glowstone Curio or something, well, I didn't have to have Grape Shot, but I did need the Curio for the win. Altar basically does the same thing as the Grape Shot. So we see here him having like 3 mana untapped, but I'm trying to explain, like, yeah, if those were like Altar and say Cloudstone, then I did have at least one of the 3 guys, and let's say potentially 1 more guy, and then I would have a Dispel up in this turn. But yeah, probably siding out Faceless Looting was a big mistake there, so maybe I had a chance. So with him having 3 mana, yes, he could have had like double counter spells, but most likely just 1. So what he had in hand was another Snapcaster and the Spell Snare, so he would be just trying to counter one thing. Alright guys, don't lose hope into this deck. It just needs better gameplay, strategies, and the tuning is alright. Sideboarding maybe was a bit wacky. So, hope you guys enjoyed it. See you next time. Until the next sale, bye.